crowd already. I promised, I almost swore then. I did make a promise I wouldn't swear at all, so I'll try and stick to that. So as a Yorkshireman, that doesn't come easy. So a culture ready to embrace innovation. What does that even mean? What does that look like? Well, get ready for it. I'll tell the journey of who I am, not necessarily the titles, and how I got here, which is an interesting journey, I guess. So that's me. And somebody that I was speaking to last night said, "Is that you?" Yeah, it's interesting because I put that through AI and said, add £20, and the whole thing of how many cameras were on me at that time. So that is my bigger self. I am a CEO/CIO of Primary Goal, an independent training provider. I'm a director of Edufuturists. So I'm a futurist at heart, passionate about learning. The Edufuturist is a future of education podcast. And somebody went, "How long have you been at it?" 9 years we've had a podcast. And somebody went, "What, before it came cool?" I've never been cool, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, we've been doing the future of education conversation for such a long period of time. But who I actually am is not the titles and the jobs. I'm a dad of 2 feral young children that I live back in Yorkshire. And somebody said, "Well, what does that mean?" And I said, if I was having my dinner and somebody said, "Who are those children swinging from the rugby post?" I wouldn't even need to check, and they would be my children. The dirty, wonderful, curious, empathetic children of mine. And I started life as a PE teacher. How on earth did I get here? I have no idea, but let's see. Today will be stories, anecdotes, some learning. I will not really show stats, because I'm not that type of guy. And it's just going to be, hopefully, one nugget out of the next 45 minutes that you might take away through some humour and some fun. So that's who I am. This is who I am not. I am not Harry Potter or Harry Potter's dad. I'm not Where's Wally. And does anybody know who this is? Captain Haddock. Yeah, I am not Captain Haddock, Tintin's best friend. He looks really angry there, but I was like, is he a baddie? He's not a baddie. It's just me when my son gets into bed at 4 a.m. Before I flew over. That's what I look like on a general basis as a dad. So, let's set the scene. You are all in industry. In it, immersed in it, living it, breathing it, and everything else that goes with it. Let's see whether you know the current landscape. So, just call it out, we are really bad at predictions. This is audience participation. If you don't participate, I stand between you and a drink. Okay? You don't get to drink, I'll bring it all down and I'll drink it myself. So, okay, when is it predicted that AI machine will be an author of a book on the New York Times bestsellers list? Shout out, please. 28, 2030, 32, next year, last week, did you write it? Is it yours? 2049. What a terrible prediction. But that prediction was made before the boom of generative AI in 2022. So remember, we are bad at predictions. The next one. When do we think it is predicted that the first AI machine will perform surgery on a human? Never? Are you a surgeon, anybody? They're taking my jobs already. You don't want the machine to cut you open? Well, I live in England, and I'd prefer a machine to cut me open rather than the waiting list that I have, I'll be honest. Absolutely. I'm ADHD. It was 15 months just to tell me that literally I can't stand still. AI could have done that in an instant. Okay. Any more guests apart from the surgeon at the back who says never? 2030, this guy just keeps repeating 2030. Is that a significant birthday? This man will be 21 in 2030. Anybody else over this side? Already happened, this guy said that as well. Okay, 2053. We are terrible at predictions. And I remember, again, 2018. AI has been around for such a long period of time, but actually now we all see AI as generative AI. There is machine learning, there's loads of different things, and I'm not going to get into the detail of that. But just into context, machines have not performed surgery. But before COVID, the first transatlantic operation from a surgeon on a patient in the UK actually took place, I believe. So those things are already sneaking in. And I was part of a project for a period in regards to AI and how that can be used to identify and quickly analyse X-rays to speed up the process. Ultimately, again, I've been in the NHS, I've broken bones because I'm clumsy, as of my children, and the waiting times to just somebody to have a look and say, that's broken, could be sped up. Last one. What is the predicted year of the first fully automated farm from planting to harvest? And you're all quiet again. Have you gone to sleep? 2030. Is that the... Louise, if I swear, blame the middle table. Blame the middle table. Holy shit. 2060. Okay, anybody else? I knew we were going to say already happened. And you know what? He's right. Well done. Well done. My brother has come over with me, so I appreciate that. So 2017 in the UK, that has already happened. Plant to harvest already happened. The machines only go in to fix things. Okay? So when you say AI is coming to take our jobs, well, actually, let's be honest, business models are already upside down. AI has forced it, has changed it, has thought about our role within business, who we are as leaders, who we are as workers, what do our children step into it? We talked about the generation up to 2016, was it? Or 2020, Gen X or Gen Z? Well, actually, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I always tell a story of Ella, who is 5, who got bored very quickly from a YouTube Kids advert. And I then had to explain to Ella that when I was a child, I had a favourite program called Hollyoaks. And I got to watch Hollyoaks once a week for an hour, and I had to wait a full week. And during that 40 minutes of the wonderful programme Hollyoaks, don't judge me, I could make a cup of tea or go play out for the length of the breaks. And you know what Ella said to me for the first time? You're a liar, Dad. I tell her about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, but she's calling me out on a lie on this one. This was fact, Ella. And ultimately, the world is very, very different now, and we are preparing young children in learning, workers, and everything else for a world that we just didn't grow up in and develop in. An example of that, does anybody work from home? What a wonderful experience is that. I love working from home. I have a mirror up, I get to talk to intelligent people all day long, and then I go on Teams calls, and it spoils it. But I spend time in coffee shops, and all of those different wonderful places, and I see working from home, those cloud workers, and Wi-Fi is in abundance in coffee shops. And places like Starbucks are now Wi-Fi companies that sell coffee. They are completely remodeling themselves. Apparently they wanted to say great coffee, and then somebody just had to question the quality of coffee from Starbucks and the rest, so they had to just change it and say, just sells coffee. Okay. Got a couple of videos just to put into context as well. The maestro will help me play.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
A video created well before the generative AI boom. People say, AI, we need to put it in the bottle. We need to stop it. We need learners to not have access to it. We need our members of staff to not have access to it. It was out there a long time ago. And the world is now a different place. The ability for machine learning and AI to do things quicker, faster, whenever, all your jobs are gone. Even you, Mr. Surgeon. Am I scaring everybody yet? Wonderful, hopefully. Next one, please. Anybody a music fan? Okay. Anybody a Johnny Cash fan? Okay.
Hello, I'm not Johnny Cash. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere. Oh, come on Barbie, let's go party, 'cause I'm in a Barbie world. If you wanna be my lover, you gotta get with my friends. Make it last forever, friendship never ends. Up in my hands, up to playing my song.
Stopped it just before Miley Cyrus, didn't it? That's my fault, I apologise. But wonderful. So, the reason I show those is to put into context of things that already exist, that are in the workplace, that are there and can be done using AI. We made bad predictions before COVID. We make terrible predictions now of what the future might be. And I'm a futurist, and I still get it wrong. AI is such a powerful, wonderful thing, and I liken it to the print press. It is so transformational for learning, for work, for lots of different things. So why does that matter? Why culture and why innovation if machine learning and AI is going to take over the world? Because of all of you. So how do we prepare and how do we embrace innovation, culture, and this new world? Well, we start with why. This is where I need your participation. So has anybody read the book by Simon Sinek? Start with why. You know where I'm going. It's not a new book. But so many of you, put your hand up if you run a business, own a business. Do you know your why? So many businesses, so many employees understand the what and the why and the how, but do we truly understand the why of business and also the why of every employee that's there? Do we know your why? So the golden circle. This is the bit we want to focus on. We do so much training, so much learning, so much emphasis on the what and the how, but actually the why is so important. It's the bit that isn't our product. It's the why. It's beyond making money. Okay? It's the passion. It's the values. It's the beliefs. It's the things that drive us. So what's your why? Slido time. Get your phones out, if that's okay. I told you you'd be busy. If you don't have a phone, borrow your friends next to you. Okay? I want you to put in what your why is. Why do you do the job? Why do you do the thing that you do? Not why you're here today and the lovely soup that we had. First soup I've ever had at a conference with a white t-shirt. Thanks for that, Learnovate. What is your why? And let's see what we come up with. Is it not working? It's coming. It's whirring. Okay, structure, flexibility, independence. Structure? Who said structure? I'm going to call you out. Nobody wants to say structure. Growth, flexibility and independence. Novelty. Okay, some new ones for me. Provide for the family. Love that. But remember, is that a what and a how? Is that your why to provide for the family, or could you do it in Aldi rather than the employer that you're with? If it's about money, then ultimately, could you earn money elsewhere? Family, joy. Love that joy. Growth, human skills. Absolutely. Keep going. Growth is coming out strong. Okay. So it'll keep going, but what's really interesting is structure is high, novelty, money is becoming central. I'm glad you've all been listening. Purpose, growth. The growth one's really interesting, actually, because ultimately, our generation, the research shows that we will have 5 careers, 17 jobs, 2 side hustles in our lifetime. When we went to school, we had a careers advisor that used to tell us what job we'd get for life. No more, because actually people are growing within the fields that they're in, whether you're in education or whatever. You will change roles, you will grow, you will develop, you will flourish and move on. Next slide, please. So I was in education for 17 years and moved from teaching running, skipping and jumping to leadership, and then led digital transformation. And one of the things I focused on in innovation was this. Does anybody know what this drink is? Martini. Know what your weekends look like, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, martini. And is anybody old enough to remember a 1980s martini advert called Any Place, Anytime, Anywhere? Okay. Well, I took that into learning and education, and I coined the phrase of any place, anytime, anywhere learning, and it became a model that people use in further education. And I now use it often in the conversation that I have with my staff. That ultimately, a job is a purpose, is an opportunity, but it's not a destination anymore. You can work from wherever you are, generally, depending on your role, and it can be any place, anytime, anywhere. It's about impact and hours. Gone are the days where we thought you worked hard when you came in at 7 o'clock and you left at 7 o'clock, and we judged you based on how long you sat in a chair. These models have been turned upside down, because you could be sat shopping 7 till 7 and everybody just thinks you were great at your job and you worked really, really hard. This one is my favourite and I love to talk about it. HI and AI. Somebody mentioned something that really triggered me this morning. I think it might have been yourself. Yeah. Soft skills is a wonderful terminology, and it was a response to a question, I think, in regards to the soft skills, communication, all those kind of things. And I think my favourite thing, and I spend a lot of time exploring, immersed in AI and the opportunities and what's available and what the future looks like. But I think my favourite thing about it is coined a new phrase. Soft skills meant that we didn't have to focus on these things in education. They were potentially less important, and people saw it because it was soft. It wasn't the hard things. I love the terminology of human skills, human intelligence. And actually, this is really relevant in regards to culture and innovation in a business. Now, I spend a lot of time using this in my role. I create structures, I create automation, I do all of those wonderful things, from websites to automation into HubSpot, so it looks like people have responded to emails and booked meetings and all those wonderful things. And do you know why I do it? Because it allows my team the space to do this. To be human, to do the wonderful things that AI cannot do currently, will likely never do better than us. Be empathetic, to be understanding, to be compassionate, to be curious. Communication, critical thinking, all of those wonderful, being creative, all of those great things is the things that we need to focus on as humans in business and in life and in learning. Because if this, and we can create Johnny Cash singing Barbie Girl, it's more powerful than that, of course. And it can do all of those other wonderful things that you see, and it only gets stronger that we as a team, in terms of our culture, need to focus on this bit. Giving space, regardless of filling their time up, and create space for them to focus with customers, be engaging, be empathetic, to communicate better with each other, and really start to critically analyse what their role and the work should be. Okay. I'm going to talk about the Pixar approach a little bit, and I'm going to show you a video next. But the thing I'll focus on this slide is actually think about the culture that you want to create in your organisation that you create. I'm not an expert My only degree is a PE degree. So just to call that out, I'm not standing up here telling you I know of all the answers and I'm the most studied and qualified person in the world. I'm just telling you a journey that I've been on and the things that have failed really badly and some things that have worked. But I like stories. And the reason I say JFK and NASA, does anybody know the story of JFK and NASA? Right, you can keep quiet then. It's absolutely fine. Anybody else? You'll get bored for the next 5 minutes. Anybody else want to get bored for the next 5 minutes? Wonderful. Everybody else is on the first journey. So JFK and NASA. So JFK went into NASA during the space race and went to a janitor or a cleaner and said, "What do you do?" And what did that person say? "I clean the floor. I do a particular task." No, they did not. They said, "I'm sending someone to the moon." And I talk about culture in my organisation of that moment. That I'm lucky to have 40 staff, brilliant, that want to work with me and work alongside me. And regardless of their role, what we talk about often is what we are trying to achieve rather than the task and the activity that you are doing. Focus on what the whole is. My company doesn't send people to the moon. Of course it doesn't. It's about learner experience. And that's what we focus on. Then ultimately, no, regardless if you work in exams, in MIS, if you're a teacher, an educator, the chief operating officer or commercial director, this is what you stand by. That we are all there for learner experience and to light a fire under young people and career professionals every day. And then the Pixar approach. Video, please.
No solo genius, no flash of inspiration produces one of those movies. On the contrary, it takes about 250 people, 4 to 5 years, to make one of those movies. To help us understand the process, an individual in the studio drew a version of this picture. He did so reluctantly because it suggested that their process was a neat series of steps done by discrete groups. Even with all those arrows, he thought it failed to really tell you just how iterative, interrelated, and frankly messy their process was. Throughout the making of a movie at Pixar, the story evolves. So think about it. Some shots go through quickly. They don't all go through in order. It depends on how vexing the challenges are that they come up with when they're working on a particular scene. So if you think about that scene in Up, where the boy hands the piece of chocolate to the bird, that 10 seconds took one animator almost 6 months to perfect. The other thing about a Pixar movie is that no part of the movie is considered finished until the entire movie wraps. So partway through one production, an animator drew a character with an arched eyebrow that suggested a mischievous side. When the director saw that drawing, he thought it was great, it was beautiful, but he said, you gotta lose it. It doesn't fit the character. 2 weeks later, the director came back and said, let's put in those few seconds of film. Because that animator was allowed to share what we refer to as his slice of genius, he was able to help that director reconceive the character in a subtle but important way that really improved the story. So what we know is, at the heart of innovation is a paradox. You have to unleash the talents and passions of many people, and you have to harness them into a work that is actually useful. Innovation is a journey. It's a type of collaborative problem solving, usually among people who have different expertise and different points of view. Innovations rarely get created full-blown. As many of you know, they're the result usually of trial and error, lots of false starts, missteps, and mistakes. Innovative work can be very exhilarating, but it also can be really downright scary. So when we look at why it is that Pixar is actually able to do what it does, we have to ask ourselves, what's going on here?
Okay.
For sure.
So before we move on to this, the lady that you've just seen, does anybody know that lady? Professor Linda Hill at Harvard. She's a wonderful human being that talks, that writes around collective genius and the art of collective genius, around innovation. And her book, and I can send a link on, I'm not on commission, is one that you should read if you're talking about the collective. that actually I have innovation in my title and it annoys the life out of me at times, because then people go, right, Steve, what are we going to innovate? And I go, what are you going to innovate? And it's a cat and mouse game that it isn't one individual, in my opinion, innovation. It's a culture. It's a feeling. It's leadership at all levels, where people, through radical candour, can rise up and challenge positively each other around the impact. And Professor Linda Hill and the research that goes into the book and the findings and the TEDx talks that she's got, that you saw a snippet of, talks about Pixar. Talks about that many people see innovation and think innovation as an Einstein, one individual, of this wonderful person that just innovates and comes up with everything. Where actually the likelihood is in your business that collective genius is more important than the one. So you might come up with ideas, but it might be like a Pixar movie. Did you think that you are going to create the idea, you're going to do all the drawings, you're going to do the designs, you're going to direct, you're going to do all of that and get it to the big screen, or Netflix as it is now, or Disney Plus, and come up with a Nemo, or one of those wonderful stories that we all love? I think we're wrong. So how do we do that as an individual? Well, I think the irony is I'm stood on the stage right now. But what I'd say is, as the innovator and the leader and the culture that you should create is that you build a stage for them to perform on. And we'll talk about psychological safety and all those things in a moment. But actually, you are building a stage for your team to perform to their best, however that is. I think it's beyond money. You bring people in based on your why as a business and as a person. You recruit based on what your skill set is and bringing in diversity. And another book. I like books. I'm a reader. Rebel Ideas by Matthew Syed is wonderful. It talks about diverse rebel thought. And it is a crazy book that starts on 9/11 and talks about actually the missed opportunities by the CIA and the FBI at the time, because they were looking from a white, male, Christian perspective at how could one man in particular dress in a cave around a fire actually attack one of the strongest or the strongest cities and countries in the world. But what they missed is, because they were looking at it from a white, male, Christian perspective at the time, the impact that had on other faiths and other religion and other people around the world and the significance of it. And I love this quote. That innovation is not one person, but a collective people, a network. That you are a network in terms of Learnovate. We still run exams based on individual perspective often of somebody sitting in an exam hall, sitting there for hours at a time, hoping they know the answer and it comes to them. That is not real life and that is not work. How often do you go do a task, and if you don't know something, you sit on your own, don't talk to somebody, just hoping an idea comes to you? Well, in this room, think about the power of the collective in this room. You add it to the room next door and the room upstairs. You add it to all of those people that came to dinner last night and the whole Learnovate community. You add that to conversations that have been had today around the whole of Dublin. Throw in a little bit of Yorkshire and a Whippet maybe. You throw in Europe. You throw in all of that, and what you get is a collective wisdom and genius beyond one person's opinion and thought that is diverse, that is rebellious, that will change the world and might even do surgery. Okay. We'll talk about risk-taking then. Does your organisation allow risk-taking in your business? Put your hands up if you say yes. Okay. Risk-takers, eh? What do you do? Bungee jumping on a Friday? Skydiving on a Saturday? Drinking in work? What do we do? If you say drinking at work, where do we sign up? You drink at work? All right, oh, wonderful. Does he work at Learnovate, everybody? Maybe read back his articles, yes?
We're allowed to try things that might not work out.
Wonderful. Okay. What does that feel like?
It feels that
absolutely love that. And how long have you worked at your organisation?
3 years.
3 years. Did you create the organisation? Love that. And are you going to stay forever? I hope so. Sounds a wonderful place. What is the name of the company? Momentum. Anybody else from Momentum? There's a lady over there, and she didn't put her hand up when she said take risks. I think she's the boss. She's like, I hope not. Okay, risk-taking. Does anybody recognise any of these things? Okay. Yeah? Anybody know what this one is? It's my favourite 10x project from Google. Helium. They didn't create helium. Anything else? But it does work. Anything else? Come on. It's Wi-Fi. What is it? What the reason why nobody's talking to me? You all run on Wi-Fi and it's terrible. So it's Wi-Fi. It is Wi-Fi. Wonderful. This is Project Loon. It is an idea where they would send balloons into the stratosphere that would use artificial intelligence to move round the world globally and stay in formation to provide Wi-Fi to countries, to war-torn countries, to places in famine and war and floods and all of those terrible things that happen. And it worked. You're going, Wi-Fi's terrible in Ireland. There are certain restrictions. They tried to give Wi-Fi away. I'm from Leeds, and they tried to put free Wi-Fi on telephone masts. Does anybody work for a telecoms company? Perfect, just once. We only dislike one person in this room. No, I'm not joking. So ultimately, what they did is, the reason why they couldn't do that and give away free Wi-Fi is because we pay a lot of money for our data, don't we, now? In terms of we get free phone calls, we get free texts, but generally we pay for our data and the access to it, and that's why it was blocked. So there's certain places around the world that it would be shut down, and certain places where it just didn't want to go. America. It's not great over there. Self-driving cars was part of Project X. Vertical farming. What is Project X? Everybody asks. Does anybody know this guy? Does anybody know his job title? Well, you won't do if you don't know his name, but anyway, I'll tell you, because I can see you're all so excited to hear. A magician. He is a magician. This is Astro Teller. Astro Teller, what a wonderful name. My heart died a little inside when I realised he'd changed it by default. But anyway, let's just pretend that didn't happen. And his job title was Captain of the Moonshot Factory. Oh my days. I want to be Captain of the Moonshot Factory. Don't we all? Don't you want to be Captain of the Moonshot Factory, sir? He's doing his emails. Okay. Astro Teller, Captain of the Moonshot Factory. He was the boss of X. Not the thing that Twitter turned into. X, which was a Google project that they spent billions and billions of pounds on, and their whole thing was to try things and prove they couldn't work. And there's a wonderful TEDx talk by Astro Teller, and it's called The Unexpected Benefit of Celebrating Failure. The gentleman in the middle, so kindly and so bravely, he took a risk and shared. And I love that. And this whole project was around taking risk, trying things. And these guys got massive bonuses when they could disprove something wouldn't work. That is what it did. And they spent billions of pounds on it. And we got vertical farming, self-driving cars, Project Loon, and so many more wonderful ideas. And if anybody thinks that self-driving cars aren't a wonderful thing and happening, then they happen already in Dublin and you just don't even know. Don't even if you know that driving maybe today when you've walked past in Dublin, there will be people and there'll be self-driving cars in our communities and they have a driver because you're not ready for self-driving cars yet, but they are driving themselves. And in America it happens, and all of those wonderful things. People say they're better than human, or they're not as good as humans and everything else. I've seen myself drive. I would take self-driving cars every day of the week. So yeah, what do we do when we celebrate failure, not as a naughty, as a bad word? How do we create a culture that celebrates taking a risk, trying their best, and bloody failing? Because how do we get anywhere? How do we push the limits if we don't create a culture that is ready to fail so that we can actually thrive? We get nothing. We all know this quote. We have a wonderful Yorkshire breakfast made by AI, may I add. And this is culture eats strategy for breakfast. There are different arguments of you need a culture. This is my opinion. Culture does eat strategy for breakfast. That when you write a strategy, when you write a paper, when you write any article, if the culture isn't ready to receive it, it's just a piece of paper. Transactional analysis will demonstrate that as a leader, you might go into a room and you might have a group of rebellious children. I don't mean children. What I mean is those people who go, absolutely not doing that, not doing it. At least you know that they're rebellious. But actually your workforce might be creating compliant children. My children are compliant children. And when I see my compliant children, what I know is they're going, absolutely. My son's thinking monster trucks. My daughter's thinking unicorns. But what they're thinking as compliant children is, I've told them something that they're going to nod and say, absolutely, we'll do that. And you go upstairs. Are they doing it? I won't swear, but they are not. That is the culture we do not want to create. A culture that reads, that pretends they're going to do it and implement a strategy, but actually isn't. So we need to create a culture that speaks up, is open and honest, that brings radical candor and honesty and is allowed to do so and then takes a risk. And as a leader, we need to stop cultivating crop. We need to stop being farmers of learning and people and process. And we need to let a rainforest grow. A rainforest is wonderful. Anybody been to a rainforest? Absolutely. Which rainforest? Paying too much for this table. I went to the caravan on the east coast of Yorkshire with the kids. They got into a rainforest on holiday. Okay? So a rainforest is wonderful. You walk through, you might have been there 2 days before, and the day after you go, where did that come from? We need to allow outstanding shoots of practice in individuals to flourish and thrive. And as leaders, yes, we might make decisions, but we need to get the F out of the way and allow them to be experts in their own right. Not to tell them what to do, to allow them to flourish and create and become a rainforest of wonderful nature. And sometimes you have to cut that rainforest back. And sometimes you have to just think, don't think that should be there right now because I need to walk in it. We just need to embrace that, but allow that at times a field full of corn looks wonderful when it's cultivated and we create it in rows. And the plants and all those wonderful things. But how beautiful is a rainforest in full flourish and full flight. Psychological safety. So I was lucky enough when I left education to work with Google. I was CEO of Google's #1 partner in the UK. Don't know how that happened. No idea. I taught running, skipping and jumping. I don't wear any socks. I wear longer trousers now because they won't let me wear shorts. I don't know how I got there. But ultimately what I learned from that is psychological safety. Has anybody read these two books? Brené Brown, ladies and gentlemen, is a wonderful individual that I learned so much from. I've listened to a podcast, I've read the book, and every leader that I ever work with gets a copy of this book. And every year we go through a cycle of a Dare to Lead book club. And we open it up not just for my organisation, but anybody that wants to join up. We put it on LinkedIn and say, anybody want to join our crew? And we do a Dare to Lead book club. And what it's about is vulnerable, honest leadership. Creating trust by being honest, by giving clarity. She talks about clear is kind. That ultimately it's not just, look at me, I'm a wonderful leader. What it is allowing space to dare to lead, to show your true self, to be honest when you've failed, but also to give clarity directly if something isn't good and you don't think this is impacting positively your organisation. Does anybody do that? Because if you don't, You allow bad things to develop, and the conversation becomes more difficult later down the line. And daring greatly, just as a human, I love. Just as a human. Another book, The Power of Us, was a great book. He wrote a couple of books, one called Open, one called The Power of Us. The late David Price, a good friend of mine. And The Power of Us actually came out during COVID, and it talks about the power of the collective. The examples within the book are that actually open source, how did we open source the tracker for COVID and all of those wonderful things in the Far East compared to the wonderful things that the English government did where they created it centralised and it was done on an Excel spreadsheet. And it talks about the power of the collective and how we can innovate together and how we're better, stronger. Feel the fear and do it anyway. I've stood on stage, nervous, sweaty, and I do on a regular basis, and I fear the fear on a regular basis, and I push myself out of my comfort zone. And what we talk about is the PDCA cycle often. How do we build, test, design for us, for the benefit of our learners or our users or whatever your focus is? How do we constantly iterate and go through pain on a regular basis for the benefit of our why? My whole why is to benefit learners regardless of their background, of where they come from, the country they live in. That is my standalone belief and value as a person, that education is for all, and I will go and I will fear the fear on a regular basis and I will do it anyway. I love adverts. I love linking adverts to different things. There is no finish line was an advert in 1977, I believe, by Nike. And I wrote a couple of articles in regards to being a dad, learning, innovation. And what I would say is the challenge with innovation and constant development is there is no finish line. It's not a marathon. You will not see something, finish it, and be done, and you can rest forever or never do it again. That actually we need to see, we need to support, we need to make sure that our teams are watered and fed, supported, so they don't fall over, because innovation is really difficult. It is a constant, infinite game of improvement, not for a drive of perfection, for constant development and everything that you do. And going back to the last slide, that's really painful, isn't it? Okay. I've seen some of you today. These are the 4 faces of change. HR practitioners might have seen these before, that in any organisation, you will see these 4 faces of change. They might belong to the same people, they might vary, but actually, in any implementation, in any innovation, and any staff changes, you will always get this group, the navigators, the people that will do it, drive it, and always be up for anything. So if I said, right now, let's go out in the car park and we'll learn out there, some navigators would be like, yes, that's great. But ultimately, in terms of your culture, you also have to understand is the other 75% might be really more difficult to transform, to create a culture and support. That actually, you might have some of the noisy crew, some of those critics that are vocal, and you get them in a session like this, and if there's a full room of critics, would not advise it. You might have to work individually, one-to-one, and coach and mentor those individuals, because if you get those people in a room together, they will influence others, because they're the noisy ones. Perfect. Okay. So, one of the podcast guests that we had, you might recognise this guy, Hole in the Wall experiment in New Delhi, Siddhartha Mitra. Go look it up. He was then a professor at Newcastle University, created a whole learning theory called the soul learning theory. And Siddhartha Mitra talks about you can't solve new problems with old solutions. that actually we need to do things differently. In the world of AI, with the new generation and how they want to learn and absorb and be led, that actually we need to find new solutions for the new problems. And I'll leave you with this. Okay. As a runner and a triathlete, or a pretend one, I love this quote. It's from the film Horrible Bosses. It is going to be painful at times. It is going to be challenging at times. But remember, you can't win a marathon or run a marathon without putting a few band-aids or plasters on your nipples, ladies and gentlemen. So go through the pain, feel the fear, and do it anyway. Thank you.
Wow. I haven't ever come up to a slide like that before. I love it. A huge thank you to Stephen for his inspiring keynote. I think we're all going to be leaving with some new ideas, how we unlock innovation within our organisations. I love that human intelligence but alongside. And the power of the collective is really exciting. And I think I just got told, speaking of the power of the collective and people that are open for new connections and new ideas, 500 people at Learnovate, so I think that deserves a little boulabus for the team. Very, very exciting. So we are now going to take a short coffee break in the atrium. If you've not had the opportunity to chat with some of the sponsors and the event partners on that mezzanine level, now is your chance to do so. But do come back here at 3:30. We do have a fantastic fireside chat and a wrap up by Elliot. So go forth and get some coffee, but we'll be back here at 3:30 sharp.